Coming up on AEA Amplified, Honeywell's Global Business Aviation Outlook shows strong demand for new business jets and an increased focus on reducing carbon emissions.
From the Aircraft Electronics Association, this is AEA Amplified, a podcast for aviation's technology experts, with your host, Jeff Hill.
Hello, friends, and welcome back to another episode of AA Amplified. As always, it's sponsored by our good friends over at Genesis Aerosystems, a mode company providing full flight deck upgrade solutions of customizable EFIS smart displays, UHF and VHF airborne radios, and autopilots, plus much more for retrofit and OEM factory fit aircraft. To learn more about the upgrade solutions, visit genesis-aerosystems.com. Hi again, everyone. I'm your host, Jeff Hill, for this October 15th, 2023 special edition of AA Amplified, coming to you on the eve of the NBAA convention in Las Vegas, where earlier tonight, longtime AEA member Honeywell just published its 32nd annual Global Business Aviation Outlook. And here to tell us all about it and dive into the details is Javier Jimenez Serrano. He is the Strategy and Market Research Manager for Honeywell Aerospace. And Javier, thank you so much for being here on a Sunday night to break it all down for us. I know we had you on as a guest almost exactly 1 year ago to the day. So many of our listeners are familiar with the Honeywell forecast, but just give us a quick refresher on your annual report and describe the methodology behind gathering the data, how you collect the data, where it comes from, and also how long it takes you to put it all together.
Yes, hi, Jeff. It's my pleasure, and it's nice to be back with your AEA audience. Yes, this is, like you said, the 32nd edition of the Honeywell Business Aviation Outlook. It's been uninterrupted, even through the great financial crisis and 2020. And it basically synthesizes data from several sources. One is a survey of hundreds of business aviation operators, data from observed usage and purchase behavior, publicly available data, purchase data, internal, external data, and intel from meetings with our OEM customers, our MRO partners, and fleet operators. And in terms of timing, we craft the survey in the spring, early summer, and conduct the interviews between July and September. Then we gather the intel through the year, right? And we get it all packaged up and pretty for NBAA.
So obviously it's a very, very detailed and lengthy process that you go through. And I know the headline in this year's Outlook indicates that we're seeing strong demand for new business jets over the next decade. So let me start by just asking you exactly how many new business jet deliveries that industry should expect from 2024 to 2033. And then also, what does that dollar value equate to?
Yes. This year, we are forecasting 8,500 business jet deliveries over the next 10 years between 2024 and 2033, both years included. The dollar amount, and this is the market size, very simple. Those deliveries times the list price in 2023 dollars, sum it all up, and we're looking at 278 billion. Yes, the number of aircraft that we forecast is the same as last year. In terms of the value, it's gone up just a bit, and that's just because of the effects of inflation on the list prices of most jets. Other than that, pretty similar to last year, 8,500.
And Javier, I see that one of the report's key findings is that the fleet additions are up for the third straight year, which is good news. What else can you tell us about that?
Yes. So out of the 19% rate of new jet purchases as a percentage of the current fleet, out of that 19%, 3% is fleet additions. And additions in the past have averaged just over 1%, and that's the average over the past 10 years. So this is around 200 more additionally, right, on top of that usual rate of additions. And that's what we picked up. In the next 5 years, expect an additional 200 over what has been the average in the past.
All right, and Javier, also your report shows that the business aviation operators out there are now showing a greater interest, heightened awareness, I guess, for reducing their carbon emissions. So,
Mhm.
what can you tell us about this strengthening shift towards sustainability efforts that's taking place in the industry, and how do operators actually reduce the carbon footprint?
Yes. So before I answer your question, I want to make sure I mention that there is a section on our survey that deals with sustainability. For the past 3 years, we've been asking operators what current methods are they implementing for a more environmentally friendly operation, and what are they planning to start implementing or increase in the future. Now, because of the timeline of the survey, we're looking at the next few years. We're not looking into the 2030s, 40s, 50s, right? In that case, most people would say, well, electric, hydrogen, not sure will I even be alive, right? But when we look at the here and now, is limited. The good thing is that Honeywell, for example, has ready made or ready now solutions like SAF and other efficiency tools. Now, in the survey and what they responded to the first question, what are you doing now currently? Not many of them said SAF, because we know that availability of SAF is still tight, right? But when we shift the question to the future, what do they start? Where are they thinking about starting implementing or doing more of? And about 40% are saying yes, SAF. SAF is the way to go because they don't want to compromise on the performance of the aircraft, right? A lot of alternative methods, right, involve decreasing the cruise speed, etc. So they're looking at SAF, and that makes sense. It's the ready now solution that just needs to be made more available across airports.
And once again, we are visiting with Javier Jimenez Serrano of Honeywell here on AEA Amplified, sponsored by Genesis Aerosystems, a mode company. And Javier, can you tell us about maybe some of the other key important findings that stand out to you?
Yes. So by now, um, we've seen orders for new aircraft stabilize. Backlogs, they're still long, right? It's still a long waiting period, but that hasn't increased at the same rate as in 2022, and flight activity has come down a bit from those 2022 highs. So knowing that, we can start making a comparison between what we are seeing now today for the next 10 years and what we were looking at in 2020. And by doing that, we've been able to estimate that the new buyers, quote unquote, new buyers post-COVID, are going to drive 500 additional deliveries of turbofan business aircraft, and around 6% more flying than what we would have seen had we not had the 2020 trough, right? And we're still 10% above 2019 levels, but we don't just want to be above 2019. We want to be above where we would have been now if growth had kept up from the 2019 baseline.
And Javier, I know I asked you, I think the same question a year ago, but it's fascinating to me, and I think it's important to help our listeners put things into context. Of course, Honeywell, as you've noted, you've produced this report now for 32 years. So I'm curious, when you look back, I guess, over the long-term history of that report, and I know much of that predates the two of us, but how
Yes.
accurate has the report been over that time in hindsight?
Yes, yes. And by the way, this is the 32nd year that we present at MBAA, but it is the 38th year that we do the survey. So yes, this predates us quite a bit. Um, I if I could predict the future exactly and precisely, I would not be here, nor would I have this job. um, it's a tough proposition, right? It's like predicting the weather. Best you can do is warn people, and look at the trends. Having said that, I believe that this process and the survey has revealed quite a few trends that have been advantageous for the industry and for Honeywell in its history, three almost 4 decade history. One, and just some examples here. One is the the creation really of the super midsize class, right? Honeywell, some 2 decades ago, was looking at what the A350 was going to look like, and through the survey, we understood that the users really needed something that had a little bit more performance, but at a competitive price point, right? So that's one success story there, and we've had hundreds of deliveries per year since the launch of, I guess, the inaugural aircraft was the Challenger 300. Yes. Something else is the the industry was looking at personal jets, right? Microjets. They were gonna cloud the sky. I think the survey didn't agree, and maybe my predecessors took a little bit of flack because they were not in line with the rest of the industry and the buzz. But we prevented ourselves and the industry perhaps from chasing something that wasn't there. And lastly, supersonic business jets. The survey through the years has said, yes, there is a market, is not very big, about 200 total, right? Without getting into replacing those 200 total, and it's probably not enough for a startup, right? That being said, of course, Honeywell is ready and able to support any OEM designing or planning a supersonic business aircraft. But anyway, this is what the forecast and the survey are useful for: identifying trends, identifying where Honeywell should invest, and where we should maybe leave it up to the rest of the industry to prove themselves.
That's a great stuff there. A great breakdown. I appreciate that. Before we get to our final four questions, let me ask you: are there any other interesting nuggets to point out from the report, or other items of note?
Yes. Since you mentioned earlier sustainability, and I shared that this was the third year that we do this. I would like to share some trends with you, right? So in 2021, when we asked people about what they might do in the future, 2/3, 67% or so, of the operators, of the respondents, said that they didn't plan to do anything different. They didn't plan to start doing anything or increase doing anything. That number went from 67% in 2021 to 40% in 2022, and now we're looking at a third. So even though the methods for quote unquote decarbonizing business aviation may not be apparent or available everywhere, I think it's fair to say that the industry is becoming more aware. There's more awareness, and operators are starting to plan ahead.
Well, Javier, it's always great to catch up with you. And now it's time to have a little fun with our lightning round and our final four that's sponsored by Genesis Aerosystems and Moog Company. And we're just simply looking for the first thing that comes to your mind and why you feel that way for each of our final four questions. So here we go. Number one, if you had to write a book tomorrow, what would you write about?
Okay, I would probably write a book about quotes. Many times during meetings, I take down notes on what people said that might have been funny. A lot of people, when they're maybe in the heat of the moment, maybe working harder at something, they might have a Freudian slip, right? They might have something, they might say something unexpected that I find really funny. For example, I've caught my boss, and this is the same notebook that I use to take notes throughout the day, but in the back, that's where I write the quotes that I like. I have my boss have quoted here saying, "The prize of in a cake eating contest is more cake. Congratulations." I found that pretty funny.
That's awesome. All right, I will read that book when you get that written. Number two, who has been your most important professional mentor?
Yes. A consultant by the name of Richard Brown. He's the managing director and founder of Navio Consultancy out of the UK. We worked in the same company. He was managing, I believe, the Europe accounts or EMEA accounts. When before my Honeywell life, I was a consultant as well. And I don't know if it's because he saw me as a, um, maybe he thought I was lost somehow. I don't know. I had just graduated with a master's in aerospace engineering, consulting, a bit different, right? Even though I was not intimidated by any math in consulting, different animal. So he very quickly broke anything we do, anything we did in consulting, anything I do now can be summarized in three questions. The three questions that I ask myself every day as I do my job here. One is there a market for whatever we're looking at? How big is it? And do we have a right to play, right? Very simple. And then we started reading books together. Free Economics was one of them. Now, the book is a bit controversial. It doesn't represent how I feel about any of the topics in the book, but it does encourage people to think about the incentives that different actors have as you go through life, and tries to size, right, the opportunities in life, and apply econometric behavior, which at the end of the day, it's psychology, either in the microeconomics individual, or psychology at the individual level, or at the macroeconomics, what happens when you put the intentions of many people together, right?
All right, very good. All right, question number three is if you could live anywhere in the world, where would it be?
I would love to live in the Basque Country. I am originally from Spain. I am not from the Basque Country, but I am very much food motivated. And the Basque Country has really good food. I think it's the place with the highest concentration of Michelin star restaurants, per area, per square, whatever, meter, square kilometers, or square miles. And it's quite green. It's pretty. I would definitely consider or uh, retiring there. Right? You gave me a choice if I could do it anyway. But even even if I don't win the lottery or my life doesn't work out so that I can live there in the near term, I will at least try to retire there.
Sounds good. I'd look forward to visiting there as well myself. All right, our question number 4, our final one is, what is the most important lesson that you have learned over your career?
Yes, I've learned to not get too frustrated with people, right? A lot of times, because I'm very much data driven, and I try to be open and transparent with my intentions. When those don't align with other people's intentions or actions that I need to work with or whatever, both professionally and in my personal life, I've learned to understand that they're not stupid, right? They just have different priorities, and I just need to hopefully understand them and find a way to satisfy both of our priorities.
That's a great answer. I can totally relate to it myself and something I need to work on myself. So, Javier, thanks so much for joining us here on AA Amplified. And for our listeners out there, you can learn more about Honeywell and the 32nd Annual Global Business Aviation Outlook on their website at honeywell.com. And if you happen to be at the NBAA convention this week, you can see Javier in person over at the Honeywell booth, and that'll be at the Las Vegas Convention Center. Before we sign off, let me do remind our listeners and AA members out there some important items, and that is the AA's classroom is loaded up once again with a full schedule of avionics training courses that take place at the headquarters here in Lee Summit, Missouri. And there are several in-person and virtual classes available. You can learn more about each of them and reserve your seat by visiting aea.net/training. Also, there is only one AEA regional left on the schedule this year in the United States, and that's going to take place in Reno, Nevada, October 26th and 27th at the Grand Sierra Resort. And for AEA members that are in the South Pacific region, the final regional of this year takes place in Queenstown, New Zealand, and that'll be November 9th and 10th. You can register now and make your hotel reservations for either of these two-day events at aea.net/regionals. And finally, workforce development is always a priority for the entire aerospace industry. So be sure to check out aerocareers.net. That is a one-stop resource to help recruit the next generation of aerospace industry talent. Again, that's aerocareers.net. That's going to wrap it up for today. We hope you can join us again soon for another episode of AA Amplified, sponsored by Genesis Aerosystems, a Moog company. To learn more about Genesis and its full range of upgrade solutions, visit genesis-aerosystems.com. Thanks again to Javier Jimenez Serrano of Honeywell for being our guest today. And until next time, here on AA Amplified, for our producer engineer Aaron Ward, this is your host, Jeff Hill, wishing you blue skies ahead. So long, everybody.